Hi, I will be talking to you today about simulation technology, in particular, the use of avatar patients and virtual reality environments as an alternative to address the issue of clinical knowledge transfer into patient care. At the speech language pathology program, we have a very common problem to other programs in allied health professions, which is the issue of this development of clinical skill learning, integration, and transfer of this knowledge into the clinical practicum experience. According to Geoffrey Norman, clinical reasoning is actually the issue that we need to address because it is clinical reasoning what serves as a bridge between knowledge acquisition in the classroom and the transfer of this knowledge into real life experience with patients. The question is then, how do we best achieve clinical reasoning development? And Geoffrey Norman again points out that it is the opportunity for deliberate practice with multiple examples and feedback which will help develop this clinical reasoning since it will facilitate the transfer of basic concepts and into the experiential knowledge. Currently, speech language pathology programs have basically relied on the clinical practicum experience as a way to develop clinical reasoning and not just to showcase it. The reality of health services nowadays has really put a lot of constraint, not only in cost-cutting measures, but also in time management. And there's a lot of difficulty for supervisors to devote the time necessary for proper feedback and also for students to experience this multiple exercise or multiple practice that is really required. There's also an intolerance for learning mistakes that students would normally make in the field because they are they're costly and they are time consuming, but also because there are some ethical concerns as well as patient safety. So, what we are proposing as a possible solution or an alternative is the inclusion of technology in the form of simulations. According to McGaffey and Eisenberg, there is evidence to show that the use of clinical simulations in a laboratory setting will transfer directly into improved practices and better patient care. Traditionally, when we refer to simulated patients, we would normally be talking about the use of standardized patients. Standardized patients are actors in role playing exercises and they require some coordinating and there is some cost involved because usually these actors are paid paid even if they're minimally paid. What we're proposing is the use of multimedia computer simulations. This is basically a new approach, although it's been in use in medical education and it's spreading to other allied health professions. And in these computer simulations, we use or it's used patient avatars, which are digitized versions of the patient, as well as engineered virtual environments where these avatars would interact in a case study situation. The student would then react to these situations and maybe ask questions or interact with the avatars in a virtual clinical setting. I would like to share with you a short video of as an introduction to SimuCase, which is a web-based simulation program for speech language pathology, and it's an example of the type of case study simulations that we are referring to.
Simicase, where case studies come to life. Yeah, my knee, and it will bleed. It was on my knee.
I am very concerned about her speech. I try to help her, but I don't know how. I am very concerned about her speech. I try to help her, but I don't know how. She gets so frustrated with me when I ask her to repeat or simply point to things. What am I doing wrong?
Hello, this is Ms. Emily Jenkins. Carolyn is a student in my class this year. She is a very bright young girl who loves being in school.
Come and practice with me, online, anytime.
In performing an evaluation of this proposed technology, we are using the ACTIONS model evaluation. ACTIONS stand for access, cost, teaching and learning, interactivity, organizational issues, novelty, and speed. In the following slides, as we go through each of the ACTIONS model elements, you will see either a plus or a negative sign next to it, and that is my evaluation of whether in each parameter this technology is a plus or a minus in terms of limitations or strength. In terms of access, it is a plus, it is a strength, since the coordination and access to simulations by other groups, individuals, or even the professor, it's much easier than with the traditional simulation of standardized patients. They would be readily available on the web or by using a computer. In terms of cost, it is a limitation. It would be perhaps the most complicated element. There are two issues though. If our program or our school was to try to create and design and produce a multimedia simulation from scratch, the cost would be very high. It would require a lot of equipment, and it would require skilled personnel, including computer programmers, designers, engineers, uh, animation personnel, and it would be very labor intensive. There are, however, some alternatives to simulations, as the one that we already saw, Simucase, which are already available, and it would definitely cut the production cost significantly. There's still some fees or subscriptions for some of these programs, most of these programs, and if it's a software, it would also imply some costs for acquiring them. There will need to be some requirements of equipment, computers, and web connectivity. whether it'll be a computer lab that we would have to set up, or if we're requiring students to have access to this equipment. So cost is a consideration. In terms of teaching and learning, this would be a strength because simulations can be used across the curriculum to offer students realistic scenarios for patient interaction as part of their course requirements. By using simulated computer simulations that can be used partially or that could be included in exercises, it would allow for students to streamline the case study to their skills or knowledge base, which would allow also for simulation exercises to be used or exposed to earlier in the curriculum. Usually now we wait for the students to have some knowledge and skills before requiring them to complete study case exercises. In terms of interactivity, this will also be a strength of using computer simulations. Multimedia patient simulations can be reused multiple times by the same user, or it can be used the same simulation by different users, and the experience remains constant, which was an issue with standardized patients. Simulations can also be assigned as either group activities, independent study activities outside of class, or they can also be used as exercises in class or as resources for class discussions. So the interactive nature of simulations, computer simulations, carries into the interactive nature of class or class at work or class time. In terms of organizational issues, it also would be a limitation because access to available simulation software would include some costs, as we already mentioned, but also needs to be coordinated with the administration. The costs also need to be included in the budget. So there are some issues, administrative issues, in terms of accessing this simulation software. The faculty also needs to be trained in both the technical skill for using the simulations and also in terms of instructional objectives, how to include the simulations into the course content. So necessary training would also need to be included, and also faculty buy-in into using this technology needs to be procured. In terms of novelty, there is the use of computer simulations is an innovative medium of instruction, so it has novelty included. There's also the possibility of creating custom simulations with other software such as computer platforms such as Blackboard. In terms of speed of inclusion of the simulation technology, it would be very deep, very fast, but it would depend on faculty buy-in into using this technology and in the previous training that the faculty might have. In conclusion, the inclusion of computer simulations is recommended as an alternative for the improvement of clinical skills and the knowledge transfer into real-life patient care. The potential benefits, in our estimation, outweigh the limitations, which would be present at different levels for any other alternative solution, including cost and the coordination efforts that might need to be included. I am including some references that we mentioned, and I thank you very much for your attention.